Welcome back to the deep dive. So glad you're here with us.
Absolutely.
For today, we're going to do something a little different. I want you to imagine turning down the lights, maybe lighting a candle, get comfortable.
Yeah, settle in. Because the vibe for this session is, it's a little spooky.
It is. It's got that kind of chilling atmosphere.
It does. It has that classic, almost seance-like quality to it. But what's great is that it's also incredibly funny in places.
Oh, hilarious.
It's got serious range.
Relax, a little chilling, but also genuinely funny. That's what we're aiming for. But, before we dive into the weirdness, and I promise you it gets very weird, we need to set the table.
Right, the formalities.
We're looking at a very specific document. This is session 187 of the Seth material.
And to be even more specific, this comes from the early sessions. Book 4 of the Seth material.
Exactly. And for anyone who wants to follow along or really just dig deeper into this stuff on your own, it's published by the New Awareness Network.
And you really should. You can go to sethcenter.com/the early sessions.
Please do. Support the publisher, buy the books. We're putting this deep dive out free of charge on all the major platforms for educational purposes to help you get your head around these ideas.
But there's nothing like having the actual text in your hands. It's different.
It really is. And just to ground us, this was recorded on Monday, September 13th, 1965.
1965, so you have to picture it.
You really do. We're in Elmira, New York. It's a cool night. Rob Butts is there taking his shorthand notes. Jane Roberts is in her rocking chair, getting ready to go into trance.
And she's about to channel this energy personality essence called Seth. But tonight, they're not alone. They have guests.
Yes, Bill and Peggy Gallagher. And Seth, he has these nicknames for them.
He does. He calls Bill the Jesuit.
And Peggy, he calls the cat lover.
Which is,
yeah,
let's just say it becomes very, very relevant later on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's the hook. This is why you need to stay with us for this one. We are going to prove, or I should say, Seth is going to argue very convincingly, that your dreams are not just random noise.
No, not at all. They're not just your brain, defragging its hard drive at the end of the day.
He claims your dreams are electrical and chemical realities. They have actual substance, they have mass, and they literally create your physical health and your environment.
It completely reverses the cause and effect we're used to. We think our physical life creates our dreams.
Right.
Seth is saying it's the other way around. The dream reality builds the physical one.
And if that isn't enough to keep you listening, there's a moment in this session, I'm calling it the chilling moment.
The jump scare.
It's a total jump scare involving a cat, and it proves Seth's point in real time. It must have been wild to be in that room.
It's a perfect, almost theatrical demonstration of what he calls a framework.
Okay, let's unpack that. We have to start where Seth starts, which is with physics. He opens with this really heavy concept about the nature of distance.
He really does. And this is where you kind of have to, just set aside your high school physics class for a minute.
Just put it on a shelf.
Exactly. Because Seth says the true reality of distance is dependent upon the intensity of emotion.
Wow. Okay, so dependent upon the intensity of emotion. So he's not talking about miles or meters.
Not at all. He's saying that space, as we perceive it with, a tape measure or GPS, is basically an illusion.
Yeah.
He has this great quote. He says, the emotion which is intense is felt at its peak as present in time and immediately here in terms of distance.
Immediately here. So
Yeah.
Let's try to make that practical. If I'm sitting here right now and I think about a friend who's, I don't know, in London, and it's just a casual thought, I wonder what they're up to. They still feel far away.
Right. In that case, the physical rules still seem to apply. The emotional intensity is low.
If I have a sudden, intense flash of emotion about that person, like a deep worry or a huge wave of love or nostalgia.
According to Seth, in that exact moment of intensity, you are there. The emotional peak collapses the physical distance. There becomes here. He calls this psychic space.
Psychic space. I like that term.
Yeah, he says that different emotions take up a different amount of this psychic space. And when the feeling fades, it only seems like the person or the event is getting farther away in time or distance. But that's just an illusion created by our outer senses.
It makes you rethink common phrases, like, I feel distant from you. We mean it as a metaphor.
But he's saying it's literally true. Low emotion equals high distance.
It's like our physical senses are a filter, right? They force everything onto this neat little grid of time and space so we can function.
Exactly. But the inner self, the emotional self, doesn't operate on that grid at all.
So, am I getting this right? The only reason we even experience things as being far away is because we're not feeling everything at maximum intensity all the time.
In a way, yeah. I mean, we have to dial it down. Our physical survival depends on being able to navigate physical space.
Mm-hmm.
But this is why he immediately pivots to talking about dreams.
Right. Because when you're awake, you're locked into that grid. My eyes tell me that wall is over there. The clock tells me 5 minutes just went by. But when you fall asleep,
The outer senses shut down. They're restrained. And when that happens, Seth says the dream state more clearly represents the actual nature of time.
that's a massive statement. He's saying dreaming is more physically real than being awake.
In terms of the physics of consciousness, yes. He says in a dream, you move through emotional intensities, not minutes and hours. You can experience what feels like a whole lifetime of emotion in what your bedside clock says was only 10 minutes.
Everyone's had that happen. You wake up from some epic dream that felt like it went on for days. You traveled the world and you look at the clock and it's like, oh, I've only been asleep for an hour.
It's so disorienting.
Yeah.
Seth says the dreamer moves through these intensities without any awareness of physical hours passing. You're only aware of what he calls the interior time element.
So if space is emotional intensity and time is emotional intensity, then the dream world is literally a universe constructed out of pure feeling.
Emotional energy, yeah.
Mm.
And because the waking rules of physics don't apply, the sleeping self, which is his term for the you in your dreams, has what we would call superpowers.
Okay, let's talk about that. The dream avatar. I love how he breaks this down.
It's a great way to think about it.
Seth makes this list of what the sleeping personality can do, and it's this mix of the totally normal and the completely miraculous.
Right. He starts with the normal stuff. He says the sleeping self acts, speaks, walks, it makes deductions. It's an active, intelligent personality. It's not just a passive observer watching a movie.
But then he drops the other shoe.
Then he drops it. He says the sleeping self also travels through space in moments, and it speaks with those who do not exist within physical reality.
Meaning the dead.
He specifically mentions being able to see and talk to parents who have passed away. And then there's this one, which I find fascinating. In dreams, you often just know what the other dream characters are thinking.
Telepathy.
Instant telepathy. He says, quote, in his dreams he knows, on many occasions, what other characters think within the dream context.
That is so true. When you're in a dream, you never have to ask someone, hey, are you upset with me? You just,
Yeah.
and you know the answer. The information is just there.
Because there are no boundaries. In physical life, I can't see into your head. My eyes stop at your skull. But in the dream world, which is made of electrical and emotional reality, there's no physical barrier to cross.
The idea of you is just accessible.
Exactly.
And Seth makes a really important distinction here about the relationship between the waking ego, you know, the me that's talking right now, and this superpowered sleeping self. He seems to be saying the waking ego is, well, kind of the dumbed down version.
Limited is a very polite way to put it. Seth says the limitations are adopted by the ego, in many cases for good reason.
I mean, that makes sense. If I could hear everyone's thoughts while I was trying to buy groceries, I'd probably have a complete breakdown.
You would. The ego's job is to focus you, to filter everything down so you can survive in this 3D physical world.
Yeah.
But Seth's argument is that the sleeping personality is actually the superior version of you.
The superior version. Ouch. My waking ego doesn't love hearing that.
It might sting a bit, but listen to this. He says, the sleeping personality is as close to the inner self as you will come in this existence.
Wow. So when I'm asleep and drooling on my pillow, I'm actually more me than I am right now.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Because that version of you sheds what he calls the camouflage concerns. It stops worrying about paying rent or gravity or what other people think. And when you strip all that camouflage away, you get to see the real abilities of the personality.
He even tells Bill, the Jesuit, that he should study his dreams more closely. He says the focus of attention in a dream is magnified 1,000-fold.
And this leads us to one of the central arguments in all of the Seth material. Dreams are not just reflections of what happened yesterday. They're the blueprint for what will happen tomorrow.
Dreams form the basis for your physical environment. That's the quote.
Yes. He says that we work out our problems in the dream state first. We test out solutions, and then, only after we found one that works, do we materialize it into physical reality.
So every night we're running simulations, we're prototyping our own lives.
Constant prototyping. He says, no dream is meaningless. No dream lacks purpose. He says even a single object in a dream is a symbol that's being translated by all the layers of yourself using a kind of mathematics, which is more complicated than any dealt with by your physical computers.
And you have to remember, this is 1965. A computer was the size of a living room.
Good point. But the principle is the same. Even with our quantum computers today, the sheer complexity of the data processing that's happening when you sleep is just staggering.
I love this concept of acting out various possibilities in dreams, running scenario A, scenario B, scenario C.
And then picking the most effective one to actually live out. It gives you so much agency, doesn't it? It means you're not just a victim of circumstance. At a very deep level, you're choosing the story you're in.
But then Seth gets even more technical, which brings us to the hard science part of this.
Sure.
Because usually when we talk about dreams, it's all very abstract. It's all symbols and smoke.
Right, we dismiss it as not real.
Seth goes in the complete opposite direction. He says dreams have a chemical and electrical reality.
This is such a critical point. He's not saying thoughts are like things. He's saying they are things. They're built of stuff, just not physical stuff. A dream, he says, is built up, on one level, of chemical components that have an electrical basis.
And he connects this directly to our biology. He specifically names the pituitary gland.
He says the pituitary is of primary importance and the thyroid is secondary.
Why those two, do you think?
Well, the pituitary is the body's master gland, right? It regulates growth, metabolism, all the big functions. Seth seems to be hinting that it acts as a kind of transducer. It translates the electrical energy of a thought or a dream to the chemical language that the body understands.
He mentions negative electrical charges being responsible for a dream's durability.
Yeah, and we probably don't need to get into the weeds of the electrical engineering of the soul.
Right.
But the big takeaway is that a dream is a structure. It is a tangible thing.
Okay, so we have this electrical reality, but then he says something about memory storage that just completely flipped my whole understanding.
This is the aha moment of the whole session, I think.
Because most scientists, then and now, would say that memory is stored in our brain cells, in the neurons, the synapses.
Right. The standard model is you damage a part of the brain, you lose the corresponding memories. Simple cause and effect.
But Seth says no. He says our experiences and dreams are deposited as electrical reality within the physical cells, but they are independent of them.
Independent of the physical cells. That is such a huge distinction.
It's everything.
Think of it like this. The cell is the computer hardware, but the memory is stored in the cloud.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy for today.
The data is accessed through the hardware, but it doesn't reside in the hardware. And why is this so important? Seth lays it out. Were dreams so connected to the physical self, then whole areas of the personality would dissolve with physical extinction.
So if the memory was literally part of the cell when your body dies and decomposes,
The memories would rot away with it.
but because it's this independent electrical reality,
It survives.
Yeah.
This is Seth building a physics-based case for the survival of consciousness after death. He says that at the moment of physical death, what's left is an electrical counterpart of the physical being with all memory and experience intact.
so the soul or the spirit or whatever you want to call it, it's not just a wispy, vague idea. It's an actual electrical structure that contains all of your data.
Exactly. Coded information, he says. It's compressed data that sits inside the physical body, but is ready to be released when the body is no longer needed.
That's actually really comforting. It makes the idea of a soul feel less like a matter of faith and more like a scientific principle.
And that's always Seth's goal,
Mhm.
to bridge that gap. He doesn't want you to just believe him. He wants you to understand the mechanics of how it all works.
Well, speaking of mechanics, let's talk about ulcers.
Ah, yes, the practical magic portion of our deep dive.
Because all this high-level physics of the soul is amazing, but Seth always brings it back to, okay, but how does this help your stomach ache?
He uses this great example of a man with an ulcer. Now, the normal diagnosis would be, he eats too much spicy food, he has a stressful job, that sort of thing.
But Seth says, no, look deeper. A man who has an ulcer thinks differently than a man who does not have an ulcer.
He's going right to the root cause. The ulcer is just the physical end product of the man's characteristic method of thought.
It's that framework idea again.
It's the framework. This man has built a mental, electrical reality of worry or anger or resentment. And that electrical reality has become so dense, so real, that it finally precipitates into a physical lesion in his stomach.
The ulcer is formed intimately from the electrical reality that composes his thoughts. That's the exact quote. It's so direct.
Which means you can drink all the antacids you want, but if you don't change that characteristic method of thought, you're just putting a bandage on the symptom.
So what's the solution? How do we fix it? Because just telling someone to stop worrying is, well, it's not very helpful.
It's not. But Seth gives us a tool, a very practical one. He calls it the pre-sleep suggestion.
And this is the part you can actually try at home tonight.
Absolutely. Seth says the dream state is a highly suggestible state. It's a workshop. So before you check out for the night, you give yourself and your subconscious specific instructions.
What kind of instructions?
He gives a few examples. You can say something like, I request that my subconscious maintain the organic integrity of my physical organism.
Organic integrity. I love that phrasing. It's like you're running a systems check on your own body.
It is. He also recommends suggesting that a harmonious relationship be maintained among all levels of the personality structure.
That's so beautiful. It's like you're negotiating a peace treaty between your ego, your subconscious, and your deeper self.
And he says these suggestions are a form of protection. If you give them nightly, they are adequate protection against organic disease, such as ulcers.
Because a suggestion is a thought, and a thought has an electrical reality. So you're building this protective shield of healthy electrical energy around yourself before you go to sleep.
You're programming the machine for optimal performance while the conscious operator is away.
Okay, speaking of programming frameworks, we have to get to the cat.
The cat incident, my favorite part.
It's the best because it reads like a scene from a movie. So let's set the stage again. 1965, Elmira, New York. Seth is speaking through Jane to the guests, specifically to Peggy Gallagher.
And Peggy, we learn, has a phobia, a fear of cats.
Which is pretty unfortunate because Jane and Rob own a cat. His name is Willie.
And Willie the cat is in the room with them.
So Seth is explaining this whole concept of frameworks to Peggy. He's telling her that her fear isn't just a random emotion, it's a structure, an electrical structure that she herself has built.
He says to her, your fear of cats has a chemical and an electrical reality that forces you to act within that framework.
And he tells her, you have created the framework and you can remove the framework.
And at the exact moment he says the word framework, I mean, you could not script this any better. What does Willie the cat do?
Willie, who's been sleeping this whole time, gets up, walks directly over to Peggy, and brushes up against her leg.
And Peggy just about jumps out of her skin.
It's a jump scare in the middle of a channeling session.
The timing is so perfect that Rob's notes say everyone just burst out laughing. Even Seth seems to find it funny.
His response is so classic Seth. He just says, I am amused.
So dry. But he immediately uses it as a teaching moment. He points out that it was the framework of fear that caused her physical reaction. The cat was just being a cat. But because Peggy had built this electrical reality of cats are dangerous, her body instantly responded with adrenaline and fear.
She was trapped inside a cage of her own making.
Precisely. And then Seth delivers the solution. Because suggestions do have an electrical and a chemical reality, they can therefore change the framework within which you operate.
In other words, you built the fear, Peggy. You can dismantle it. It's not some permanent law of your universe. It's just some faulty wiring you installed, and you can absolutely rewire it.
It's so empowering. It takes the mystery out of phobias and turns them into something manageable. A mental program that can be debugged and rewritten.
Now, I want to go back to the vibe in that room for a second. Because, when people think of channeling, they imagine something very serious and somber.
Very grave, yeah.
But this session is just filled with humor and banter. Seth is constantly teasing Bill Gallagher.
He will not stop calling him the Jesuit.
Why the Jesuit? Was Bill actually a priest?
No, not at all. But apparently, Bill had this very analytical, maybe slightly rigid or skeptical way of thinking that Seth was just having a field day with.
He says something like, it is good to have an audience, particularly when one is a Jesuit in spirit. It's like a good-natured ribbing from another dimension.
It is, and there's this great moment where Seth actively tries to mess with him.
Oh, the eye-opening thing.
Yeah. Normally, Jane's eyes are shut tight when she's in trance. But at one point, just for a second, Seth opens them.
And he says, I opened Rubert's eyes earlier and our Jesuit missed it. When I can put one over on him, then indeed I am doing well.
He's being playful. He's trying to put one over on Bill. It shows that consciousness, even this expanded non-physical consciousness, retains its sense of humor.
And what about the moment with his voice?
Oh, the volume spike.
Rob notes in the text that Seth's voice suddenly rose until it was very loud, so loud that Rob actually winced.
And Seth sort of apologizes. He says he's not tired, but he knows the guests are. It's just a reminder that there's a tremendous amount of energy being funneled through this one person.
Like a power surge.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, we should probably touch on the ESP test they did. They were always doing these little experiments to try and, prove Seth was legit.
The envelope test, yeah. Roy would put something in a sealed envelope, and Seth would have to try and describe it.
And this time, it was a photo negative of a place called the Driftwood Hotel.
And Seth gets some weirdly specific hits. He says the number 4.
The photo was taken at 4 p.m.
He says, voice of a singer.
There was literally a singer on a bandstand in the photo,
He says federal.
which Rob interprets as an impression of a large, official-looking building, the hotel.
But what's interesting is he also gets things that seem totally wrong. Like he
Yeah.
mentions a toothbrush at one point.
And Seth explains that. He says the medium, Jane or Ruburt as he calls her, sometimes gets in the way. He calls her hard-headed and says she gets nervous during the tests, which creates distortion.
And to me, that makes it feel more authentic. You know, if he got it 100% right every single time, you'd think it was a trick. The fact that he acknowledges the struggle with the transmission process makes it feel more real.
So let's zoom out. What's the big takeaway from session 187?
I think if you boil it all down, it's that we are fundamentally creators. We are not just passive biological machines wandering through a pre-made world.
We are actively generating our reality moment by moment.
We're generating it with our emotions, which literally structure space. We're generating it with our dreams, which are the blueprints for our physical lives. And we're either maintaining or breaking our own bodies with our thoughts, which can create an ulcer or heal one.
And all of that data, every single experience, is being stored in a format that survives physical death.
That's the kicker.
Yeah.
You are building your afterlife self right now with every thought you think and every dream you have.
That's a heavy thought, but in a good way.
In the best way.
So our challenge to you, listening right now, tonight, before you fall asleep, just try the suggestion.
It can be super simple. I ask that my subconscious maintain the organic integrity of my body, or maybe I ask for a creative solution to this problem I'm facing.
See what happens. Start treating your sleep like a productive workshop, not just a period of unconsciousness.
And hey, if you happen to have a cat,
You might want to watch out for the jump scare.
you never know.
And once again, a huge thank you to the New Awareness Network for keeping this material available. Please visit sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions. Get the books. We've barely scratched the surface of just one single session here.
There's a whole universe in there.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. If Seth is right, and your physical environment, the chair you're in, the room you're in, the world outside your window, is just a solidified physical printout of your dream reality, what are you building tonight when you close your eyes?
That really is the question, isn't it?
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you in the next one.
Good night.
Or good morning. I guess it depends on which reality you're currently focused in.
Touche.
See you next time.